gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another rousing rendition of the BREADren podcast in the segment we like to call Cocktail Convos, when we like to sit down and have fireside we like to call success veterans. Today will be no different. I'm joined by my illustrious co-host, Mr. Deshaun Wells of D. Wells Consulting, and we also got to give a shout out to our other illustrious co-host, Dr. John CFP. Let me preface this conversation by saying, if we do release the video version of this conversation, I am indeed in transit right now, so forgive and forget, because the quality of the content will not be tampered with. So, without further ado, I will pass it over to Mr. Wells to introduce our illustrious guest today, a brother in the Fraternal Order of Tuskegee University. Mr. Wells, please introduce the people to our guest today, Mr. Dennis Johnson.
Hey, man, it's my pleasure, and I appreciate you jumping in. I know you're attending to real life duties. Congratulations on your new expenditure out there, spending them big boy bucks on houses in New York. So, congratulations to you and the fam, bro.
Well, you ain't got to lie to the people. Tell them I went by the money.
Nah, Shannon ain't having none of that, and you already know that.
Not indeed at all.
All right, so we appreciate everybody tuning in for our Cocktail Convo series, and this is one that is probably about a year and a half overdue. One of the people that are actually responsible for a series such as this is my good friend and brother who I'll introduce in a moment, Mr. Johnson. Over the course of years, he's been really instrumental in kind of keeping the entrepreneurial spirit rolling, not only with myself, but several other members of our circle. So he started having conversations with me about, wouldn't it just be cool to bust it up with some of your favorite people over a drink? And it's crazy how synergies work. At the same time, me and AJ had been talking about a least or a less formal series, a way of talking about important topics with folks. And he came with this idea of cocktail convos, having a conversation what we like to call success veterans. So our success veteran today, again, is my brother in arms, Mr. Dennis Johnson. I'll let him give a little bit of background about how we met each other. But just to talk a little bit about him, by trade, this is a gentleman who's highly educated, graduated from Tuskegee University with honors, went on to the corporate arena to do some really great things in a really important sector. But he wasn't being fulfilled by that opportunity, making great money, but just not fulfilled. So he stepped out on a dream that he had been channeling for at least 15 years, working a plan to put himself in a position to go out and be successful on his own. So today, we're going to explore a little bit about how he did that. We'll talk through his background, and I'm sure we'll get into some deeply personal things. But I want to yield the floor to you, Mr. Obscur8, a.k.a. Narcotic, a.k.a. Dennis Johnson. What's good, bro?
Hey, man, I was just about to say that, man. It's so many aliases depending on who it is, man. But like you said, man, we met at Tuskegee. Like it was it 04?
Yeah.
Probably 04 time frame. And
I was doing stupid stuff then, man.
Yeah, but pretty much as far as the music, it went way back into high school, probably about 14 when I started doing music. So music was always there. And then, you get 18 and you got to decide what you want to do with your life. So I had to go to school or go to the military. So I went to school.
So let's unpack that. So
okay,
most times when kids get told you got to go to school or to the military, they're typically from the South. Yeah. So I'm from Selma, Alabama, and I definitely was told you either going to the Army or you going to college. It's your choice, but you're not staying here. You got to go. So tell the people where you from.
I'm from, grew up in Montgomery, Alabama. My father was in the Navy, he bounced around. So I was born in Florida, bounced to California, actually lived in D.C. for a while. And then we came to Montgomery in about 92 and been there ever since. And then went to school at Ski. The rest is history.
Yeah, cool. So one of the things we do, and AJ would hurt me if I didn't, in true BREADren fashion, if you are in a position to partake, we always raise a glass before we dive deeper in the conversation. And we always say, here's to knowledge being dropped, crumbs being spread, and hopefully our good people can pick them up. So here's to you, Mr. Woodson. I'll take this from your honor.
Cheers to you. Hey, cheers to University and Three Boys from Alabama.
I know, right? So not to interrupt you, Dennis, just to pull it back. So you graduate Tuskegee, and what was your major there?
Electrical engineering.
And then post Tuskegee, what did you do in terms of your corporate life?
Went straight into working at a power plant in Dothan, Alabama, actually, and worked there for about 5 years, and then got a job up this way in Maryland, and pivoted up here, and then it was about 4 or 5 years, and then broke away. You know, always had the vision of what I wanted to do, but just had to make money and maneuver and not jump too soon. You know, kind of get my weight up in terms of being self-sufficient and funding my own things. That was very important for me, is not to take a deal or finagled into something. You just got to build your funds up and be able to. So that was pretty big for me. So I stuck it out as long as I could, and then pivot.
So before we talk about kind of like owning your own license and trademark and your masters, right? What was it about corporate that not necessarily that you just couldn't get with because you excelled at it, but what was it that just kind of started to stifle you to a point where you're like, I just gotta go?
It was actually when my son was born, to be honest with you. Like that, the fire was always there, but when he was born, and that was about 2017, the fire got even hotter. It was like, it's now or never, because you can get into, you know how life is, you can get into a situation where you feel fearful to leave. You're already fearful, but I felt I had to jump, and the urgency was really on fire. So I would say that was the point when I had to turn it up.
So if I'm thinking about this right, you have we don't want to disclose anybody's income, but you have a comfortable living.
Right.
You're doing relatively well in your career. Now you add this responsibility of having a baby. So you had recently gotten married as well, purchased a home, major life things, and you decided to walk away.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds crazy, and it is crazy the most, but It's something that I felt I was for like since 14, since when I was in love with music and what I wanted to do. And I always had a vision of what I wanted to do. It was just trying to navigate and get to that point. And I felt like I had the tools. It wasn't about whether I was good enough. So if I could apply the tools I was applying in the corporate America as far as the same work, then I got a chance, you know.
Right.
And that's what, you know, ignited that.
So let me kind of talk to you about this, because what you bring up is an important thing, right? You said you have been prepared. So for the people out there who are looking to make a jump, maybe your path can allow them a way to have a blueprint to follow. So you talked about getting the capital to be self-sufficient, to be self-funded, right, and having ownership. You talk about that process and what that looked like for you. Like what were you doing with your 401k? What were you doing with, let's say, your income tax checks, things of that nature? How did you put yourself in that position to be able to?
I mean, the most important thing I did was when I first got out of school, I didn't buy a lot of stupid, you know, I wanted a car, I needed a car, but I held off on it. I didn't go clubbing every weekend. You know, I didn't do things that when you're excited to get out of school and you get that little bit of money that you would typically do. Like I just held off on a lot of stuff. Like I had a good time, but still I had it in the back of my mind that I have a plan. I need to have a certain amount of funding to execute this plan and be able to, you know, have some freedom. So that was one thing with the spending, controlling a certain amount of spending. As far as a 401k, as soon as I started working, I put in the max amount. I think it was like 25% at that time. Of course, it changed depending on your lifestyle and what you need. But at first, I was trying to put the max out, get as much as I could in terms of a company match. And then as far as that, I just kept trying to save as much as possible. You know, life happens and you have to spend money, but as much as possible, like save with the vision in mind that I'm going to need this, possibly need this later on down the road, and I want to be comfortable. I pivot. So those were the top two things, is controlling the spending. And when I had a opportunity for the 401k, you know, putting as much as possible just so I want to see it. It's a lot of it's a mental thing of saving, and you see it, then you're liable to mess with it. So I just wanted to come out my check, don't see it, and then pushing.
Yeah, that psychological piece is hard to manage sometimes, because you see the bread, you got the bread to do things, and you can kind of fall victim to seeing everybody else live a certain way right now, but you're thinking about the long term and what you really want to do. You use the word freedom. Now, in order to get there, again, as we work towards talking about how you went about owning these things, one of the things I would imagine you had to do was get your paperwork together and establish yourself formally as a company, as a business. And by doing so, I think maybe that affords you some of the luxury write-off things like you have. I'm looking at your background right now. This is a real studio. This is not a, hey, I'm just doing this for leisure type of activity. So, you have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment. That obviously is a large, expenditure. How does your business structure allow you to benefit from your purchases and turn those assets into tangible?
First off, I appreciate, you look at that point in time, because we had that discussion way back then, about solidifying the business and being able to write things off. And I had the vision to have like a LLC, but in terms of what to write off and what was eligible to write off, our conversations kept fed that type of initiative. So yeah, I got the LLC, make that official and be able to write it off, get your EIN, your tax number and all that stuff. But I think the conversations were more important than actually trying to do it myself. It's like talking to you and say, you can write this off. You can do this and do that and be able to, if you pay too much, you can get a refund back. Those types of things help out. Take refund money and then save that. And it's a mindset that a lot of people don't have or don't even know about. So that access to knowledge came from a relationship, came from a conversation at that time.
I appreciate that, man. It's definitely a two-way street and has always been one. So because I have an unfair advantage and I know a little bit about how things have moved, I think it might be beneficial to understand when you made this pivot and you start making these major investments in yourself, some of those things took you places and you had to take these risks to put yourself in an environment. Again, you're talking about funding this on your own dime. So,
right.
I know about a lot of the trips, getting exposure, whatever. And these are trips that, some of us attended with you to have a great time, but we saw you in full-blown work mode. Talk to people about what it really means to be an artist, a composer, and a business person, to go out, manage their company, to be the owner operator, to be their own marketer, but then to also have to hit the road and do the publicity, do the promotion. What's that grind like, and what does it really take to make these things happen?
It's a lifestyle. Like, to be honest, it never stops. So you have to, families first off, like, don't neglect your family chasing your dreams. Like, appreciate them and spend time, but at the same time, you have to pick up the phone, answer calls, answer emails. It's constant. So to think it's just all right, I'm going to do this from 6 to 6 and be done. It doesn't work like that, because opportunities can come up at 4 a.m., 2 a.m. Like, I used to literally wake up at 4 a.m. just to do music before I went to work. Like, that's the type of mindset I had. With any little pocket of time, I'm going to use to my benefit, because time is all I have. Like, time is more precious than the capital. Like, I have to be in position to execute and make the plays or whatever. But to your point of, I know exactly what you're talking about, that conference, that it's like,
exactly.
Those things, you have to take risk. Like, nobody said, okay, if you come out here, I got a bag for you. I got 5,000 for you. It would be in your best interest to come out here and network. And it was, because I met a lot of people that I'm still in contact with. And relationships are, if not the most important, one of the most important things you'll have. Entrepreneurship is networking and relationships. Those can make or break your initiative going on. So yeah, I would just say it's a lifestyle. That's the main takeaway. I would tell people, it doesn't stop, and you have to be comfortable pivoting and maneuvering your schedule and shifting things around, giving time to your family, but still being able to, all right, I gotta step over here and do the moving and not feel like, not get down about it. Like, it's just continuous. It never stops.
Yeah, man. I remember your 4 a.m. grind series. We were basically getting up around the same time, because one of the new passions that I had was I would get up, a quick little workout, but I'm also, trying to teach myself the skill of trading, and I'm plugging into group, just trying to make sure that I'm sharpening my tools on that. And I would look up and you're posting like, hey, I'm in the lab, I'm cooking. And we talk on the way to work sometimes. And it's like, yo, we've gotten up and done more in the first 2 hours of the day while most people are asleep. And that's the advantage that you keep grinding. Now, you talked a little bit about the lifestyle, right? And I think that sometimes, people get enamored with the results, right? But they never see the process. So when you think about being a creative, what's your process, right? Do you have a process formula that you kind of go to get the results? And then on top of that, if I could layer one more thing on there, how would you describe your sound and your style as it relates to create and operate?
My go-to process is my mind, like my mind and my voice. Those are two things I'm always going to tap into, because if you think about it, you've been listening to music and viewing your favorite artists and seeing them on TV. You have all these memories and things stored up. So it's there. The inspiration is blocking out everything and tapping in. And that's a key part about my process is I have to block everything out. It's basically you have to ignore everything, all the distractions, and tap into, what you want to get across, like what type of song, what type of composition. And I used to do voice notes, when I was working. I used to hop on, do a voice memo and save it for later. It could be some bad singing, it could be a melody, but I knew what I wanted to get out of it later on. I know I could clean it up, I could add this, I could add that. But it starts with the mind, getting the idea out as quick as possible, blocking out the distractions. And the other layer you were saying was repeat that second part again.
What do you consider like your style? What type of music? How would you classify yourself in terms of an artist or a creative? Because I think sometimes people try to place creatives in boxes, and they don't want to be placed there. So I want you to have the opportunity to find that for yourself.
I would definitely say it's sample based. And for those that don't know, when back in the day, you had old school music, and then hip hop came along and other types of music, electronic music, and it would sample old work and then make something. And I would say sampling will and forever be part of my process. That's what I do. I make compositions, I make samples. So I'm always thinking about how I could and it could be one of my old, could be something I made 3 years ago. So I'm always thinking about how I could repurpose something I made or something I made with another artist into something else. And then I give that type of composition to other people, and I want it to live forever. So it's not like it's a one set song, one set genre. My sound is based in samples, and can it live forever in multiple ways? Like it could live forever as a composition itself, and it could live forever when the next producer or artist takes it and runs with it and does something different. So those are the top things that define my sound. And it's limitless because I love all types of genres and music. So there's
I see you got that Jimi Hendrix in the background with that guitar too.
Yeah. And I picked up the guitar like 2019. I'm not super proficient in it, but I know how to lay the parts I need. And it goes back to that freedom of not being worried about, all right, for example, if I was in a deal or I was in part of a record deal, I may not be able to have that type of freedom. They may say, hey, we want these types of songs. But now I could pick up the guitar. I could experiment with things. I could create different types of compositions that nobody else would think of or even try out of, their situation of fear or whatever. So, my sound includes heavy experimentation. I would add that to it, is I'm always looking to experiment and break as long as it's harmonious and pleasing to the listener.
I like that. And for those that don't know, you actually the BREADren intro was composed and produced by Obscur8. And when we talked about it, you really just asked me a couple of questions. I'm like, hey, bro, I really want like an original intro for the podcast. And you said, well, how do you want people to feel when they listen to the podcast? Yeah. And in that conversation, I was talking to AJ and I was talking to Doc. And I'm like, how do we want people to feel when they're listening to the podcast? And we all kind of came to the consensus that we want to bring like a luxurious feeling in a simplistic way so that there's, people are not intimidated, but they can feel comfortable and welcome. So when it comes in, or, when you guys are listening to this, when you hear, the pauses and breaks in the podcast, that is Obscur8 production of the BREADren Pod. What I wanted to go to, bro, was who are your major influences as it relates to music? Because you talked about the classics, you talk about hip hop. When people listen to your sound, I think they can kind of capture components of so much. Like, who are your major you look at in terms of the culture?
I would say Quincy Jones, definitely. Like, he could take, and his skill set was bringing the best out of the people he had around. And that's something like I always, first off, I'm to Quincy. And then you mentioned Jimi Hendrix. Like, that just goes to that experimentation piece. Like, he broke the rules. Like, he pissed people off with breaking the rules. Like, loud, crazy, I'm going to do all types of things on the guitar. And that's the type of mindset I have. I don't like limits. And if I see a limit, I'm going to try to break it and win people over with how I did the experimentation of it. So those two definitely. I mean, there's a host of others, but those are the top two I would definitely go to. A more modern would be Outkast.
Okay.
Outkast. And they called upon the greats, you know what I'm saying? They called upon funk, soul, and they brought it all together, flipped it and did something new, and they broke the rules. So those will be the top three that, come to mind in terms of the culture and influence and who I definitely look to and always still research to this day.
Definitely see an influence. I hear influence of Organized Noise, Quincy Jones, a lot of soul. But one of my questions would be kind of like still a follow up to that is, were you ever quote unquote classically trained as a musician on an instrument, or did you just almost like drumline your way into this? Like, you hear it, you feel it, and you've, from there you've grown.
It was the latter. I heard it, I felt it. And then when I started off, I didn't know how to play anything. I was like 14 years old. I wanted to get my hands on a drum machine, a keyboard. Sampling was big, still is big. So I would sample, I would pull pieces of this and that and just fumble around on the keys till I could get, a decent bass line or this or that. Just grew over the years into, all right, this sounds good. Chords are clashing. This has a certain feeling. And then I just grew into, being decent on the keys and being able to play. Like, I can play by ear. I'm
right.
not a performer, but I can play in a studio setting and get the point across and get where I need to go. And as far as my editing and arrangement, like, that's where I shine, putting everything together in a way that makes it feel like you got 10 people in the room. That's my goal, is to that feeling of a band, of having all those souls, putting something together. I'm trying to be each soul in the composition. That's just how it evolved. But I never took lessons, never was classically trained. Nobody taught me how to engineer. It was just always experience and from the muscle and, trying to record other artists, record myself, just doing whatever it takes to get it done.
And that's I just got to point that out real quick. And, if you haven't figured it out, I am now stationary for those of you who are listening and are seeing this. I'm not driving, just hopping in. But I saw a couple of days ago, you posted, I believe you just released a new pack and you created 808. Like you've created your own 808 sound, where it's like you didn't just take a pack that somebody, like, you went in and you used your synthesizer and you created a very specific pack of 808 sounds. And I just wanted to show the range of where you started to where you are now, where you were not in the band, in middle school or high school. You didn't take piano lessons or none of that. And from there to the point now where you are literally creating instrumental sound using synthesizers and, all of these different, apps and tools in production, where you got some, big time producers who ain't on that level. And then if we're being honest, if it wasn't for Fruity Loops, a lot of people wouldn't be here, and you are beyond that realm based on your skill set right now. It's like you're more than just a Fruity Loops beat maker. You are like, and I like the way the Destrian put it at the beginning, like you compose. You're not just taking pieces of something that somebody gave you and putting it together, which is nothing wrong with that. But you're, like you said, and that's how I just wanted to give that tangible explanation and visualization of how your influence with people like Quincy Jones and Organized Noise and Jimi Hendrix can kind of come together, where it's like everybody in those realms, some of them were classically trained. Quincy Jones played, trumpet for everybody back in the day to, Organized Noise, and those boys probably, they came around where it was like sampling and figuring out their own sound and taking influences. But I just wanted to point it out, like, dog, like the growth is amazing. Like, to be able to do that and to be at this place now is, that's another notch on the belt of, okay, you went for what you wanted to, and look where you are with it now. Like, cause you could have, I won't say mediocrity, but you could have just settled at this level, like, all right, I make good beats.
Right.
But it's like you got to a point where I'm sure one day you just like, that don't sound right. That don't sound right. Like I've got like, me and you've had this conversation, me, you, and Destra, where we all have a circle of friends who are musically inclined. Some some do make beats and produce and things of that nature. And it's like, I've watched my brother go through 40 different packs and clicking every single sound. It's like, nah, that ain't it. That ain't it. That ain't it. Tweak it a little bit. That ain't it. That ain't it. And I'm sure you hit that point one day and you was like, you know what? I'm finna try to make my own sound. And you've perfected that to the point now where you have your own packs. So I use that to parlay into this next part of the conversation where I want you to go is the business side of it, where now you have IP, you have intellectual property that you have created.
Right.
And you are now selling. Right. Talk a little bit about that arena and the transition of just going from, all right, I'm making beats to I'm selling beats, and I'm selling something that other people like me need in order to do the same thing that I'm doing. Because that takes you to that next level. It's like, everybody making beats. What sets you apart? Oh, I make sounds, right? I make sounds, what I'm saying? I'm not just
that I own.
Right. That I own. This is my unique, this is an Obscur8 sound. It's trademark, copyrighted. Use it if you want to without paying me, and I'm gonna come see about you. Talk about that a little bit.
It was really out of necessity, to be honest with you. Like you said, like going through, it comes to a point where why would I go through so many iterations trying to find the perfect sound when I could know exactly what to reach for, what to create, and what to do. And there's nothing wrong with grabbing a pack. Like, I live off of people that do that, and it sparks ideas quick. When you get a nice pack, you get a nice set of sounds. But for me, it came to a point where it was like, I need to know exactly what this does, what this synthesizer does, what, how to create this and how to create that, and be of value to an artist and a producer in terms of creating sounds that they don't have. Like, you can't argue about, all right, I've been through all these types of sounds and samples, frustrated, but if you haven't come to Obscur8, then, you're missing out on something. So it was just kind of a necessity type thing, and challenging myself. Like you said, you get bored, like creating the same loops, the same patterns. So it's like, all right, I need to, if I'm going to have my own sound, I got to invent my own sound, literally. And that's me. Like, a lot of people think different. A lot of people in for the monetary side, but I had like a real personal connection with the culture, so to speak, because I've been doing it so long. And it was like, I need to have my own sound. I need to open up. And it's not just about me. It's other people I work with can contribute, bring sounds to the table. So it's like opening up a whole, marketplace for other people as well. So those were the top things. It was just necessity and opening a marketplace and being of value to artists and producers.
I like the way you phrased it as like, you needed to do that, because I kind of mentioned like how, in whatever realm that most people are in, it's easy for us as humans to get to a point where we're like, okay, I'm good at this, and I'm just going to be good at this. If, let's talk about our alma mater. Our football team has been good forever. We ain't doing that high right now, but everybody always has a conversation. Oh, we need to move up to D1. We need to move up to D1. And it's like, in our daily lives, we might be on a D2 level, and we might be cool with that.
Yeah.
You got to a point where you was like, you know what? I need to set myself apart. more so is like, I want a sound. It ain't out here. I've looked. I obviously now I have to be the one who created. You could have easily just sat around and just like, all right, well, I'll wait a little bit. Just go, all right, Google, anybody created this sound yet? Nope. All right, well, I'm going to just deal with what I got till I do it. Couple of months. All right, Google, did anybody create it yet? No. All right. But you literally was like, no, I've gone through what I got. It's not there. I hear what I want in my head, right? Like,
right.
So let me at least do my due diligence of trying to create that for myself. I got tools, but it's like that, right? That mindset in itself is key for some people. Now, it's nothing wrong with being the best in your realm and like you good with it. It's like, all right, I'm good, and I'm gonna stay being good at this. But in terms of what you do now, especially with making sounds and making music, and for most people on the outside looking in, especially, they would consider what you do a saturated space. There's the memes and the jokes of, everybody wanting to put out a mixtape. Everybody wanting to be a rapper. Everybody wanting to be an entertainer. Everybody wants to be in entertainment and that whole thing.
Right.
But being able to unknowingly carve your own exact path, with like from the jump, you never went into it like, oh, I want to be a Timbaland. I want to be a Dr. Dre. It's like you look up, you can look up to these people, but it's like you really did it because of your actual personal passion with sound. I'll say sound because it's not just music. Because the first time I heard the BREADren intro, I was like, this is wild.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have a vision of what it should have been, but that was not what my vision was, if I had one. Because what you created was so its own thing. I don't know how to describe it because it's like choirs and voices, strings, and it's a symphony.
Play it.
It's a symphony.
Play it.
I can't play it right now. I can't play it right now, can I? I might be able to play it right now. Hit me with host. Hit me with host real quick. I can play it right now.
While I do that,
my bad, Dasher. I didn't mean to just come in and take over my interview like this.
Bro, you all good, man. It's what we do, man. Everything is organic. But while you doing that, I think the dope part about what you said is, this is why I was waiting to circle back to this. If you didn't come into this with the attitude that you wanted to have freedom and you wanted to have ownership, there's no way you could carve out this lane for yourself or impact culture in the manner in which you're doing. And after we play the intro, I want you to kind of talk a little bit about, again, going back into the business side of how do you maneuver and negotiate, for credits, album credits, because I think those things are key and critical. Because I know you had some placement and things of that nature, but I think most people just stop at I got the fire ass beat. That ain't enough.
Right. I just need somebody to rap on it, and I'm gonna play this. I'm gonna play the sound, but this calls back to the conversation we just recently had. We were all together, which I'm grateful for that. But we had that conversation where it's like, it's people out here doing very minimal work in this realm and making simple sounds for commercials and things like that. And they making good money. Whereas people that's, and I'm not knocking nobody that's doing whatever lane they're taking, but there's some people out here just grinding hard, and their focus is like, I need a rapper to, I just need to get, I need to get T.I. on my beat, or I need, whoever the hot rapper is like, open your mind up to these other avenues, which is one of the things you did with, like, all right, let me create my own sounds for me. And it's like, oh, you want my sound too? All right, well, bet. Well, here we go. This is the BREADren sound. I mean, y'all heard it at the beginning of this, but we gonna play it because just listen to it. Because the other part is I didn't know the word. I asked DJ. I was like, hey, what is that? What are they saying? And then I'll say after we listen to it. Hold on, here we go. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that was the intro for BREADren Podcast. Created by yours truly, Obscur8.
What's crazy is like listening to it, I haven't a long time. And that's the thing about it is I create something probably every other day. So it's hard for me to go back and listen to things. But yeah, when I'm listening back to it, I remember exactly where I was trying to go with it. Like we're from Skigi, so spirituals are very heavy. The choir, part of the history. So I was like, it needs to have a spiritual vibe. It needs to have a feeling like classy and luxurious. And I knew what you all were talking about. It was about bread, building wealth, let's ride high, it's just higher aspirations. So those were the things that were coming to mind, and putting it together, just trying to build that landscape for you all to do your thing. And it came out pretty nice, bro.
Yeah.
It's such a visual track. It's very visual, because I think DJ might have said something, because he was like, oh yeah, Dennis gonna make us an intro song. I was like, all right. Because all of the podcasts that I've done, the last time I did a podcast, Kevlar, we all know Kevlar. Kevlar created the intro music for it, but it was just on some, hey, I want to, I'm being creative right now, so here, I got an intro song for you. And then DJ was like, hey, Dennis is creating. I was like, all right. Because I was using something that I found based on what I like. We were called BREADren, so I scanned through a bunch of reggae songs to find someone saying BREADren, and that's if you listen to the very first couple of episodes, it was BREADren. It's a. Let me stop for it. Somebody come ask me.
Copyright infringement.
Copyright infringement. Hopefully, it was made before 19, whatever the hell when that cutoff date is.
Cut off.
Yeah, public domain or something. Yeah, anyways, but it was, it was that kind of. It was like, all right, DJ gonna make one, but then I think DJ said something like, Maybach.
Yeah.
And then so when I had that, and then when I listened to it, I was like, this song sound, this intro. Honestly, it's a song. I don't care that it's 30 seconds. I want the extended version. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, you got to bring out the full clip one day.
Two things. It's like that. It's like that one. The couple of episodes of Fresh Prince where you hit a whole intro song.
Yeah.
Not just I need that. But two things is I feel when it plays backseat, darkened luxury, pulling up to a place where wealth is being created, not just money, not just ideas, just wealth is being created. It's very opulent. I see the lights. And the second thing is that's your ass singing.
It's me, and it was a couple, it was a husband and wife like that were doing freelance. They just do freelance vocals. And I was like, I need a choir. Because I'll hop on and do some background vocals at the drop of a dime just out of necessity. But I was like, this has to be a real choir. So I brought them, and they're like in the front, and then I'm kind of like sitting in the back just to add that extra background vocal type choir. Yeah, man, that's what that was.
I didn't know you went to the ends of the earth. Did had to find some obscure.
It had an open call audition. It was like,
I know, man. We owe you some money, man.
Hey, man, it was at a time where I had just left corporate America, so I was like already doing it. So I didn't have it doing it at all. I was really training myself intro on what I end up doing with Obscur8 and other samples. Just like, okay, this worked out. This is how you do it. This is how I'm going to space the vocals. There's a lot of stuff that goes into, building choirs and building composition. So it was like, you helped me out with later on, what I wanted to do in terms of how to do it. And it just takes the experience of going through it and trial and error.
Now that's what I call terrestrial, because I didn't know that's how that came about. You could not have told me that that's not what you were doing at that point.
Right.
Full time, like, hey, Dennis is out here making music for commercials and TV shows all day long. Like, you just telling, like, oh yeah, that was almost like the beginning of this next stage. I don't believe that, because I'm like, no, the way that sounds, like, that's what you were doing. Like, you had been left corporate. So I'm just having to wrap my head around the fact that this was not the thing that you were 100% into at that point in time. It was like, this was your foray into, like, all right, now I'm finna start really going hard to this next phase of it.
Right.
Because that, to me, is like quality placement audio.
Yeah.
If BREADren stops, you go take that same beat, take the words out, and it's on a sci-fi show or a thriller, some kind of thriller, because it has that darkness to it, but it has an uplifting quality. It's quality work, man. It's goddamn quality work. Cheers to that, damn it. Cheers to that.
I appreciate it. But yeah, that was the first time I put a
building wealth up to the sky. Oh, that was the second part. I asked DJ, I was like, hey, I was like, it's fire. But what is he saying? I was like, I don't know the words. It's our theme song, and I have no idea what the words was. And he was like, oh, words is like, brethren, let's ride, building wealth up to the sky. I was like, so simple. But it sounds luxurious.
Yeah.
It sounded like a call to ride. Like if I played that on a loud song,
like
people finna mount up. It's the sample from Regulate. At the beginning of Regulate, we'd be like, Regulators.
Yeah,
mount up. It's that. Congratulations, my man. You just made a modern day Regulators.
When we have a full-fledged conference, man, we walk out to that, man.
I'm running that. I'm running extended version. 7 minutes long, Isaac Hayes style, Isley Brothers style. I don't care. I'm walking slow and low coming out.
Oh man. Hey, look, so check it out, Dennis. So as we start to kind of wind things down, let's talk about how your business has evolved today. Kind of the spirit that you have and the different avenues that people can find you in, and then how they can access you and get in touch with you.
As far as like how it evolved, it's Obscur8. It started off, of course, I got the .com, obscur8.com, but where I sell the samples is Obscur8, OBSCUR8.shop. That's where I sell the samples. I'm going to pivot Obscur8.com into more of like a cultural thing later on. So this is like the first time I'm even speaking. So you got the exclusive.
Oh, man, come on. Hold on.
Yeah,
we'll add some bombs in there when we edit it, and then it'll all that.
I'm gonna pivot that into artist inspiration, motivation, studio clips where it's more so like the day in the life type feel, and even the artwork. That's another piece I want to talk about. Is all of the artwork myself, and that goes back to freedom, is being self-sufficient. Like I hate waiting. I hate waiting on people. So I need to be able to do everything that I need to get done. So when I do ask somebody, when I outsource exactly what I'm talking about, how long it's going to take, and I can get the best product possible. So, and art has always been in me. I want to kind of pivot into the inspiration behind some of the artwork. Because if you remember, if you look at
that one that you did with Amir, the Julius Caesar.
Oh, you're talking about the Egyptian, like the Pharaoh. It was the Nas. It was like a Nas. Remember, Nas had I Am, the album. Yeah. And Amir wanted something just like that. So it was going to be a project in and of itself. And I hope this podcast lights the fire so he could bring that back out. But
shout out to Amir.
That's
the new joints.
We got to get Amir on. I had a long time ago. No, did I interview? I think I interviewed him and James.
Yeah,
when they first started them.
You know what's crazy? You know what's crazy, AJ? Cultural, the spirit influence that sometimes we don't even look around and see that we have.
No, like we don't.
And we've carved out these lanes. And for a lot of people that don't know, if you go back and listen to the very first episode of BREADren, we talked about power circles and strategic relationships. And I called y'all out by name because of my personal consider our power circle, and to look back and just see what everybody's done since. I mean, you look at where Amir is in his lane, and we definitely need to tell his story. He was recently on Life and Kick with Nix, and Nick is another brother that we're going to have as well. But we look at what you're doing in the area of music and business and industry, and I think the thing that I see the consistency in all of us at this point, we've gone from just letting or allowing something to be a hobby, and we have really turned them into productive, lucrative business. And that's something that I'm personally proud of, to be affiliated with you guys, because like AJ said earlier, we could have just stayed at the D2 level, just kind of doing things haphazardly. But like bros really got off their ass and really went for it. I mean, and you just walking out on a big bag and saying, I'm straight.
And
man.
that is a scary for some. realization, because I wanna put the disclaimer that we, in terms of our sphere of MJ calls it, we never took it for granted. We never take it for granted or took it for granted. It's just one day you really, you know what I'm saying, as everybody goes around and does what they do, you just, you always like, oh man, I see you over there. You doing good, brother. I see you doing good, brother. Then you look up one day, you like, oh, we was all really just doing it. And we all doing it. But we're all in the moment of doing it, and we're always in the moment of doing it. It takes little moments like this where you sit back, you're like, oh shit, man, we was back there when we started, and we here now and we still doing it. Oh man. Let me take a moment to just be super proud of us, because I'm always proud of it in general. But it's like you really do got to take inventory of the thing and the triumph of where you started from, because I don't know where you started, but most people I know that started in terms of, production started in like cakewalk. So, or you came in at the first fruit. That was your introduction and you started making beats, or you might have, some kind of way came up on an MP or something like that, a drum machine, and that's where you started. And then now you fast forward 15, 20 years later and you looking around and like, oh shit, I'm sitting in my studio, in my house that I own, that I've created and generated blah, 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 whatever revenue for myself and my family. And now, the name that I've, manifested or thought about when I was 14, or, whenever because I noticed DJ said narcotics, and he throw out a couple other aliases, like when those came about, and it's like now you at this point, you like, oh, damn, I'm really sitting here living in my damn dream. Shit, this is cool.
It's crazy.
Like you said something like it takes, like listening, being on this podcast, like really opened my eyes, jogged my memory, and I truly appreciate it. Like hearing you all talk about it is just something I would never hear, never think about, because in the tunnel vision, the day to day, and it does help hearing, okay, yeah, I did do that. Like I did come from that point, built this and built that. And you do need to check yourself. You're checking yourself and not being down so goal oriented that you gotta get down, then it get here, then it get there. But you're, like you said, much further than where you were and much better off than the majority of the world. You look at the stats of who's doing it.
No, I think what we get to a point, you stop comparing yourself. And I know we've talked a lot about comparison, really like being able to really ruin shit.
Thief.
And so, it's a thief of happiness. So, but you do have to have a benchmark. And I think when you become the benchmark, there's a different type of way of looking at the world, right? And so for me, for us, for you, what I see in you is you're becoming a benchmark. And so you become the standard by which other people measure themselves against. And the reason why I say that to you is because, bro, I'm thinking back through some things. I remember when you were doing artist development and managing artists.
Yeah.
I could have swore at that time, man, he's going to walk off his job at this point, because there was one artist that you were working with in particular. And I think you guys are still on really good terms now, but man, that dude was super talented. I just think that it takes alignment as well. Like your vision for where you wanted to go, his vision for where he wanted to go, both had you were going to the same destination, but you got to agree on how you're going to get there. And somebody has to defer and allow the person with the best opportunity to lead the way. And when that business relationship, I saw things move differently for you, because I think, again, that's that freedom piece. And so I think what you've been good at along the way is saying, you know what, just because I can do it or I'm good at doing it doesn't mean that I'm going to be great at doing it. So I'm going to focus in the areas that I can be great at. And I will help and assist people in the other ways. What was that a learning curve for you? Like, how did you ultimately decide, you know what, man, here's my lane and I can be more valuable to the culture?
It's definitely a learning curve. It takes lessons. I'm avoid saying failures. It's definitely lessons that you just keep learning. And when you're in the middle of it, you're like, oh, this is going to be big. This is going to be this, or this is going to be that. You have the hope-filled vision for it, but through experience and timing and all types of things, Like, and timing is a big factor of why certain things didn't work out. Like the timing just wasn't right. Like, you need a team, you need support, you need all types of things to make to really compete out there. So, but as far as narrowing down what I needed to do and what was my lane, it was really through experience and what I could till I'm 80 years old and not get paid a dime. Like, that's what I need to be doing, because there's going to be times where I'm not as motivated, or I'm like feeling like I need to take, it's good to take breaks, but feeling like I only put it down. That's when you're like, all right, I really love doing this, and I need to block out the stuff that's making me not like certain aspects, distractions, business,
Right.
whatever, and focus on the passion piece. And once you lock into what you're passionate about, like it will always open doors for you, whether you see it or not. Like, it could be later on, it could be 5 years from now. Something you created today could make you a millionaire, So
I'm glad you touched on that. So you talked about earlier in the conversation, you talked about creating things that basically exist or live forever. In an era where we're looking at non-fungible tokens and things of that nature, briefly discuss like, hey, maybe we figure out a way to get into that space with some of the unique sounds that you're making or what have you. But before we touch on that, I know that you had a recent placement or whatever. Talk about the process of being placed, and then what does that do for artists?
That placement came about a little over a year after I quit my job. So it was like a blessing, first off. And it came about through, I always, Hail Marys. Like, I send an email to whoever in the industry. I don't care how big, a DM, in Instagram. I don't care how big. I send them something. And that particular placement with the West Side Gun, the co-production placement, was me being a fan of a producer by the name of Conductor Williams. And I was like, I like how he's moving. I like his sound. He's experimental. Like, I can identify with it. So I was like, all right, let me send him some stuff. First off, I never, it was a while before he like, look, man, I see you doing your thing. Like, that's dope. Like, keep going. I always like to build a true, genuine relationship with somebody before you like, all right, here's something.
Right. Hey, listen to my shit. Want you to take my tape.
Right. So
yeah,
that evolved in me sending you some stuff. Wasn't thinking about placements, wasn't thinking about nothing. I was just sending composition to another producer. I've done it hundreds of times before then with hundreds of different producers, big, small, whoever. And some of them open the file, some of them say thank you, some of them do something with it. But that particular case, it turned into, all right, I got a call and he said, yeah, Gun is about to use your, what we worked on. And it was just like mind blowing on a major label release at that, from an independent underground artist prior to that. Really his one and only major label release. It was just,
off of mention the name of it?
The relationship. Yeah, West Side Gun.
Frank Murphy.
Frank Murphy track, co-production with Conductor Williams on that.
I just wanted people to be, what I'm saying, we don't pay to be able to play that kind of stuff, but I want people to be able to go find it.
Oh, yeah. Run that up, man.
Yeah. Y'all go YouTube that. Go to the official channels and such.
Yeah, exactly.
Go to what is it? A Vivo. Yeah, find that Vivo or official or something.
Yeah.
Go run that Frank Murphy track up. That way, what I'm saying. Because, one of the things that I hear...
Hey, AJ, BREADren don't want none of that smoke. All our proceeds from the money be tapped out.
We don't like... Look, one thing we do not like here at BREADren, spelled BREADREN, like bread, because we always talking about our bread and we always getting bread, is we don't like burnt bread. It's not a good thing. Don't smell good. You got to scrape the burnt off the toast. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
we don't like that. But man, I just wanted to come in and say I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your efforts. Because what you created for us, just off of the intro alone, it creates a feeling. It sets a tone. It sets a mood that maybe it wasn't there before. Just that addition at the beginning of our conversations does something different for our conversations than just what was previously there, which was a sample. But that sound, like you said, you had a vision, you had a feeling of what you wanted it to relay and what you wanted to create, and it truly resonated and translated. And we got, so I appreciate you for that. I thank you for that. And we'll talk royalties when we start actually making money.
Hey, man, that's on the house, man. That's one of those moments where it's like,
people, this is why you have power circles. You understand? This is why you have power circles. You get the right people in your power circle. And when people are, in all seriousness, when we talk power circles, when everybody's at a comfortable, whether we still pushing forward or not, because we always establish that you got your head down, you focus, tunnel vision, whatever you want to call it, but you good. But you don't ever want to be stagnant. But when you have people in your circle that are at that pace where it's like, oh, we just all on the treadmill running, but we actually going somewhere. We not running in place, but we jogging lightly. We ain't sprinting trying to get there. We not exhausting ourselves trying to get there. We not lazily, crawling. But we all got a cool little pace, and we getting to where we going, and we all where we are, and we can say, hey, you over here that's doing this. Let's do this. And it's not a pull where it's not.
Right.
If it is, everybody always understands, but to be able to, I got to put in, I don't know how much. It's going to be something to do, sir.
In the intro.
Major placement, seen and heard across multiple digital and traditional platforms, something like that, is the creator of our podcast. And based on that, he practically owns a percentage of us now because that's the only way we can afford this kind of an intro song. We have to let people. So now people will start listening just for the intro. They won't even come for the conversation. But man, thank you for real, man. DJ, thank you for putting all of our fires to the ass. You know what? Damn, DJ. Thank you, Dawson, for making this happen.
Here you go, man.
To my nephew, my new nephew that's soon to come, Dawson Wells. Thank you for making this happen because it took a damn baby shower to get all three of us in a room post-COVID.
That's
and, a couple of libations for us to be like, what we need to do? Get on the podcast. Oh, same thing we said years ago, having a conversation with the dude who created our whole intro song that we've been using for years and we ain't never talked to him. Thank you, Dawson. Thank you.
Timing, man. Timing.
Hey, look, it happens when it happens. And I appreciate time for being what it is and doing what it does.
But bro, so I'm gonna give it to Dennis, man. One more time, let everybody know where they can find you, bro, on Instagram, your business sites, what have you. Let the people know where they can find you before we close out here today.
Truly appreciate it, man. It's Obscur8, Obscur8, the number 8 at the end, Obscur8, at Obscur8 on Instagram. I'm mainly on Instagram, and you can come directly to the shop, which is obscur8.shop. Also have the SMS messaging if you want to tap in with the text, 202-499-6221. If you hit me up right now, I'm gonna hit you right back. So that's definitely part of the thing is personal connection, personal relationships. And that's how we keep it going and keep it.
I said, hit me on.
Oh, yeah. And YouTube /OBSCUR8. I love putting out content, teaching, and building with the up and comers on YouTube. Want to see that?
Most definitely. And do me a favor, text me all of that. I got the IG and stuff, but just text me the two links so I make sure I put them right. And also the SMS thread so that I can put them in the description when we post the episode.
Okay.
Mr. Wells?
Yeah, man. So just quickly to close us out, man. Cocktail Convo with Success Vet, Mr. Obscur8, a.k.a. Narcotic, Mr. Dennis Johnson. I appreciate you taking some time today, man. This has been long overdue. We've been brothers for a very long time. You already know what it is. I look forward to continuing with you. And we're going to call this one a wrap, man. Hopefully your next major placement, Emmy or Grammy, whichever one you grab first.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. First off, I appreciate the time, the conversation, and the encouragement, man. This is motivation for real. Keep going. And definitely stay connected.
We got to. Nick Smith, Usher, y'all up next, man.
Yes, sir. If we don't do nothing else, I know for a fact that we're going to sit here and we're going to talk to ourselves. And when I go listen back, this ain't nothing but voice notes. Like you said, you used to give yourself voice notes. All these podcasts are voice notes for us. That's all it is. And it just so happens a couple of other people. I'm with that. I got to have another conversation with y'all boys offline, so I'll start recording soon. But that's going to do it for us here at BREADren Podcast and the Cocktail Convos. Y'all know we're going to keep coming to talk to ourselves, and we'll give y'all the content so that y'all can possibly listen in like flies on the wall, and we appreciate you. It's always a pleasure. It's always a treasure in my mind. Don't have to be yours. Do your own thing. Stick to it. Comparison is a thief of joy, but as long as you comparing yourself to yourself, ain't nobody gonna have no problem. So continue to do that. Stay in your lane. Keep your blinders on. You can find the BREADren Podcast on all digital streaming platforms. They call them so on all you can find us at BREADren Pod. That's bread spelled like bread, BREAD. Because we always talking about bread, we always getting our bread. You can find Mr. Wells Empower, Engage, Execute, and dwellsconsulting.com. Our illustrious colleague, Dr. Ajamu Lee and CF, be found at Dr. Ajamu Loving on Instagram and ajamuloving.com, and Dr. Loving on Money and You on Facebook. I should know for various and obvious reasons. You can find me at BREADren Podcast Series. I mentioned mine once before, and I don't think I'll do it again, but you can find me at 248, those are numbers, 248 MM on Instagram and Facebook, and mmbb.com. But we love y'all, and ain't nothing you can do about it. And even if you try it, we come right back. We love you, and y'all enjoy this episode and the next ones to come.